I'm the I'm the clinic manager here at Clinica Sierra Vista in Fraser Park. Also a licensed therapist. We do both adults and children behavioral health. We have therapy, case management, and psychiatry. I've been here for probably 3 years, I think now. So love it up here. Love being part of the community, working here and helping. So nice to meet you all.
Yeah, great to have you. Thanks, Jennifer. And Jan, I think you've come to our collaborative before, but usually Brooke's here, so I'd love to have you introduce yourself.
Thank you. Jan Lamucci. I'm the Long-Term Services and Supports Manager at Independent Living Center of Kern County, also an Aging and Disability Resource Connection for Kern County, serving older adults and people with disabilities. And Brooke is not in this morning, so I can attend for about 30 minutes. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. And Kathleen.
Hello. I'm Kathleen Weinstein. I'm up here in the mountain communities, Pine Mountain Club. You can see our snow from yesterday. I represent Fraser Mountain Meals on Wheels. I'm also a member of the Mountain Communities Chamber of Commerce. And I work with Lindsay and Chelsea. They help me out with the Meals on Wheels, and we collaborate on a lot of things for the community.
Thank you. Yeah, Kathleen has her hand in a lot of things in the community.
Yeah.
Maybe too many, but who's counting?
Well, one thing that we would like to work on is getting healthcare up here, a really solid healthcare in the mountain communities, particularly home healthcare for one thing.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Kathleen. Let's see. Let me see who else wasn't here last week. So Jake Lopez, we'd love to hear from you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Jake Lopez. I'm with the Office of Congressman Kevin McCarthy out of Bakersfield. I'm one of his field representatives, and I was really happy and excited and really kind of fought to be a part of the Fraser Mountain, Pine Mountain community areas. I grew up in the city of Taft, California, more a town than a city, but I have a passion for the small outlying areas. So some of you might know my predecessor, Aaron Falk, trained me up and we're ready to get going, but we want you to know that Kevin's here anytime, 24/7. Just please reach out to us and we'll do everything we can to support this area. But thanks for having me on today. Looks like a great group.
Great, thank you, Jake. So Maria is, in all caps, is here. She doesn't have a microphone, but she introduced herself in the chat. She's with the Children's Mobile Immunization Program with Adventist Health Bakersfield. Oh, thank you so much for coming, Brooke. I appreciate it. She's with Vince Fong's office. The only other person that I think wasn't with us in January is Rick. I don't know if you have a microphone and you'd like to introduce yourself.
I'm Rick with Mountain Memories, Ridge Route Museum, and Elktown Unified School District.
Great, thank you so much. Yeah, another one who wears a bunch of hats in the community. So I appreciate you coming, Rick. I think everyone else introduced themselves in January, and then toward the end of the meeting, we'll of course have our roundtable time where you can share any information, any initiatives you have going on, events. But for those who do have to leave early, if there's anything that you want to, you should be able to share it in the chat, or you can always email me and I will send it out with my follow-up email when I send the minutes and recording. But we're excited to have a couple presentations this month. And so Paula De La Riva is going to give our first presentation on the Safe Surrender program. So I'll turn it over to you, Paula.
Good morning. Yes, thank you, Lindsay. Paula De La Riva, and I'm actually a program officer with First 5 Kern, but we are a part of the Safely Surrender Committee that is headed up by Department of Human Services. And so I wanted to share today, and I appreciate the opportunity to share that this month, February, is Safely Surrender Awareness Month. And so you've probably seen the ads, maybe heard the radio spot. And so I'll share a little bit more detailed information about what that is. And this is in reference to Senate Bill 1368. So we'll just go through that. Let's see here. So this logo with the baby and the hand under the blue little house is certainly important. This signifies across the state that anywhere you see it, a baby can be surrendered. Obviously, the tagline is there is a way to safely surrender, no shame, no blame. And ultimately, this is a law that is, again, approved throughout the state. Each state is different. There are different ones across the state and different timelines fall through. But for us, we'll talk about California's. So Senate Bill 1368 was introduced and implemented in 2001, and it was a way to safely surrender a newborn, 72 hours born or 3 days born at a designated location. And of course, prior to the bill being enacted, babies were often abandoned in dumpsters, fields, and any place. And I'm sure for most of you, you've heard that in the past, even before that, or some of us who are old enough to remember, we would hear of just horrific stories of babies being abandoned in a dumpster or, things like that. As we know in the Central Valley, we have extreme weather. And we may not have like super, super cold, freezing temperatures, but certainly the heat can definitely deteriorate an infant's health immediately. So there are 3 choices that someone can make. There is the option of safely surrendering an infant, adoption, and abandonment. And through the safely surrender, it gives the opportunity of a safe environment for an infant to be surrendered. It protects the identity of the parent who is surrendering or the legal guardian. And it provides that safety from further prosecution. So an adult who has the legal guardianship of the infant who is surrendered will not be sought out for legal prosecution. With adoption, you certainly can leave your infant or start the process of adoption. It's permitted at any age of the child or infant. And there is a termination of rights of both legal guardians, so mother and father generally. And it is a lengthier process, but nonetheless, it is a choice that does not involve any prosecution. And the last being an option is abandonment. With this one, obviously, there is, it's an extreme situation, it's dangerous, and the law enforcement and authorities will prosecute and locate the legal guardians of that infant who is abandoned. So who and where? So who can surrender an infant in California? There are 3 identified. So it's the parent, mom or dad, a legal guardian, or a person with lawful custody. We don't know the details on, or we don't have examples of what the other person with lawful custody, but we know of so many in California that the circumstances can be anyone who has that legal custody. And where can a parent or guardian surrender an infant? In California, we have designated areas which are public or private hospitals. And in our area, because we have such a large county, we have fire stations, city and county fire stations. And again, it's really important to find the logo. You usually will see them on a window, on a door, but whether there's a logo or not, as long as it's a fire station, city or county or a hospital, a child can be surrendered. So what happens at the time is that a parent or legal guardian will go into the location, and generally they don't have to specifically use the language, "I'm surrendering my infant," just something to the effect that allows someone or the staff to know that this is what's happening. Immediately, the parent or legal guardian will be offered information as far as what the next steps are. There is a bracelet that both are fitted with. So one that identifies a number they match. One is given to the infant or placed on the infant, and the other one is placed to that legal guardian who is surrendering the infant. Because of the confidentiality and the whole purpose of wanting children to be safe, no names are taken down, no addresses, no phone numbers. So the only way that these potentially individuals can be brought back together or reunified is through the identifying bracelets. There are matching numbers, and that is the only way they could ever be brought back together. So once the bracelets are given, there is a questionnaire, a medical questionnaire that is given to the individual, the adult. It is a voluntary questionnaire. It's also fitted, or it's marked with the same numbering as the infant so that there's a way to link it back to that child. But it allows the hospital or authorities to know if there are any special conditions that the child is in need of, so that those can be attended to immediately. It does not have to be filled out. It is given with a stamped envelope so that the individual or the adult can take it with them and return it without any questions of where it came from. And they don't have to feel like they're, being postponed to leave so that someone can come and question them. So once all of that is completed, they are told the process is complete. They are free to walk away, and they are reminded that they have 14 days to reclaim their infant. And that is what, is technically called as a cooling off period. So once that the adult is gone, immediately, depending on where the child is surrendered, whether it's in a hospital or a fire station, a complete medical physical is done on the infant to make sure everything is okay and that nothing needs to be addressed. So one is performed, and then the hospital or fire station will call the local child welfare agency. In our case, is Department of Human Services, and within a 48-hour period. And the local DHS or Department of Human Services will call the state to let them know that a child has been surrendered, so that there is, I don't know if you noticed the phone number 1-800-SAFE-BABY in the beginning. So if within that 14-day period, the adult wants to reclaim their child, that number is a state number. So the state would immediately be able to link them and let them know what county or who they need to get a hold of if that reunification needs to happen. So again, child is examined. They are placed in a special foster care home. These are families that have said that they will adopt a child that is placed in their home, so that there is no multiple placement happening with an infant. And again, that cooling off period begins. How can an adult or a parent reclaim their child? Again, it has to happen within a 14-day period. Again, the bracelet is the only identifier that allows them to be linked back together. The 1-800 number or 877 number at the state level would be an assistance in that process, or going back to the place where the child was surrendered. It can also be a way to reunify them. Within this 14-day period, the county starts a hearing process, a court hearing process, to put it in the books to terminate parental right. So normally when you are terminating parental rights through the court process, letters go out, announcements go out to let everybody know who is connected to the child that this is going to happen. In this case, because there is no identifying information requested or required, there's no one to summon. There's no one to notify. So if the parent or legal guardian does not reclaim the child within that 14-day period, the court hearing continues, parental rights are terminated, and then immediately the adoption process happens. But if within that 14-day period, the legal guardian comes back and would like to reclaim their infant, that court hearing is canceled. So hopefully it's done immediately. And so all of that goes through. So if, oh, just really quickly again, so if the parent would like to reclaim their child, the local agency, which is Department of Human Services, will conduct a welfare check. At this point, there was a reason why a child was handed over or safely surrendered. And in order for the state or the county to feel comfortable that all services are being requested or needed so that the child doesn't go into an unsafe environment, those will be offered. So there is a momentary link through Department of Human Services and Social Services to make sure that the home is safe, that if the legal guardian needs some type of help, that is given, and then they're reunified. But if the child is not claimed within that 14-day period, again, they'll wait for the court hearing to terminate parental rights, and the adoption process happens immediately. So since 2001, across the state, and this is data from 2001 to 2019, there have been a total of 1,089 newborns that have been safely surrendered. Again, this is all going based on immediately after the law. Some of the mechanisms to collect the data weren't exactly in place. So, we try to get as much as we can. For Kern County, though, we can safely say that we aren't able to go that far back and distinguish some of the things that may, a situation that may be happening with an infant. So what we go back to is 2006. There have been a total of 90 infants that have been surrendered. And just last month, I believe at the end of January, there was a baby girl surrendered at a local hospital. So we do know it's working. We do know that, some years are higher than others. In 2021, there were 6 infants surrendered and 1 of them was reclaimed. In 2020, there were 8 as well. 1 was also reclaimed. And in 19, there were 5. So there is no predictor to let us know what's causing this. Again, we're not collecting any demographic data on the mother or the legal guardian. So we're not quite sure, where that's falling or what the social issues are happening that are causing that next step to surrender your infant. We just know that it's working. There has been anecdotal data from fire stations and hospitals that initially everyone thought that the law was going to protect young mothers, the teenage mother, the women that are young women that are, new to motherhood. But based on conversations from fire station staff and hospital staff, it seems to be on an older scale woman. So regardless of what situation it is, the point is we're trying to save lives with infants. And hopefully, if they do reach out and ask to reclaim their child, they will be surrounded with the social services needed in order to help them with that next stage in being a parent. So for more information, you can always look at the Department of Human Services website and as well as the state website. And I can send the PowerPoint to you, Lindsay, so you can share it out if anybody would like to go in detail as the information. But again, just a reminder, the key to this law is confidentiality. And, we hope that if a mother is in a situation where she needs to have a moment to think about what that next step is for her, this is available to her. We do have, normally when we would be in person, I'd have all the materials available for you to choose from and all of that, but I can actually make that available. I have a quick document to share with you. There we go. I don't want to show you the background of my messy desktop. Okay, so this is actually what the medical history questionnaire looks like. Very simple. It's available in, I believe, in several languages. So that would not be a barrier to anyone. So this is, again, the numbering. You can tell here that it's linked up with the bracelet, how to identify which infant does it belong to, and just some quick questions. This is what the bracelet looks like. You can see the infant size, and then of course the adult size. These are bumper stickers that are available to you. So if you wanted to just let me know what it is that you would like, and I can make sure that it gets to you. There are small little business cards, both in Spanish and English, available to you. And we do have, and I apologize, I only have this in Spanish as a sample, but this does come in English. So we've in the past recommended that if you wanted to post them in a ladies' bathroom, in a men's bathroom, no one ever wants to be shamed for looking and maybe looking to read exactly what it is. And the utmost confidentiality you find is in a bathroom. So posting them, letting people know that this is available to them is a great way to spread the message. So please let me know. I will drop my email address in the link and in the chat box if you would like any of these documents. And I will entertain any questions. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Paula. That's a good refresher on some of the requirements with that program and how it works. Did anyone have any questions for Paula? If not, we're going to jump over to Cassie with Greater Bakersfield Legal Assistance. And she's going to give us kind of a general overview of GBLA's services. And I particularly asked her because we've had some questions lately with people who are undocumented and are struggling to navigate certain systems. So I asked her, what does GBLA have that is helpful in that arena? So looking forward to what you have to share, Cassie. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having us. So my name is Cassie Mullican. I'm the Marketing and Communications Coordinator for Greater Bakersfield Legal Assistance. Today's presentation is just going to be a general services overview. I'll just kind of briefly touch over the different departments and units that we have and some of the projects that we work with, and then go over just briefly some of the eligibility requirements for some of those and options. And then I'll be able to answer any questions in regards to our services. I do need to first start with a disclaimer and let you know that any information I provide today does not constitute legal advice. This is only provided for general information purposes, and it does not use or access to this information does not create an attorney-client relationship of any kind. And so we do not take any liability for any actions taken or not taken based on the information I provide to you here today. And it must be noted that I'm also not an attorney, so I'm just sharing information about our services, not providing legal education. So here at GBLA, we have a multitude of units and programs that actually all work together as well. So while we work together unit by unit to make sure we provide a well breadth of services to our clients, we also work with community partners such as yourselves to make sure that we provide the best resources that we can to an individual. So we have quite a bit here on the list. I'm just going to kind of briefly go through each of those units. So our first unit is our Children and Families unit. These are both in regards to, both of these projects are guardianship projects. On our one side, we have our guardianship caregiver project. And for this particular project, the eligibility is that at least one child in the home must be at least 5 years age or younger. So we can definitely help with guardianship of multiple children in a family or in a household, but to qualify for the guardianship caregiver, at least one has to be 5 or younger. On the other side, we have our grandparent caregiver project, which the eligibility changes to the individual seeking guardianship must be at least 55 or older and must have some familial relationship with the child. So whether that be a grandparent, aunt, uncle, or even an aunt or uncle that's divorced from a particular family member, if you have that familiar relationship, we do help with guardianship. So the services that we provide for both of these are to prepare and file petitions for guardianship, to respond to objections from alternate parties, attend mediation and guardianship hearings with the client, and when it comes to the court and making decisions and so forth, and then post hearing letters and orders. In addition to this, once you actually obtain guardianship of a child, there are some additional things that you have to continue to do throughout the time that you have that child, annual evaluations to return into the courts and so forth. So we do also help individuals get the proper resources they need to help with that project. So again, both of these are about guardianship. This has nothing, we don't help with any type of custody or anything like that. This is just strictly for guardianship petitions. And then depending on where you qualify would depend on which project we would use to work with you. Our next is our Civil Rights Unit. And under the Civil Rights Unit, we have our Fair Housing Law Project. So the Federal Fair Housing Act of 1968 created a list of protected classes for individuals that were protected against discrimination. And through the years, there's been more additions added to that federal list, but then California is also much more extensive, and we have additional protected categories in the state that we also do. And so for our Fair Housing Law Project, one of our biggest key services that we provide is fair housing education. And we actually do this in several ways. One, we do workshops where we go more into depth about what fair housing is and how individuals can navigate that process when they feel they've been discriminated. And then we also have our annual Fair Housing Conference that we do in April in correlation with National Fair Housing Month. So that will be coming up here soon, and invitations will be sent out probably early next week. Registration, save the date had already gone out in December, early January, but registration will be opening in the coming week. So that'll get out. So that's part of our fair housing education. Then we also do investigations. So when we actually receive reports of housing discrimination from individuals, we go into a full-on investigation of this. We do this in multiple ways. We have what we call our fair housing testers, which are volunteers that come from a variety of backgrounds to help us. Essentially, they go out and they apply for rental housing, and we'll send multiple people out of different ages, races, sexes, multitude of different characteristics, just to see what the response that they received were. And if we then find that there was in fact a discrimination that had occurred, we then report that to the proper enforcement services, which is that Housing and Urban Development Department. So, and they take on for enforcement from there. So, but it's very important to know that individuals feel protected and feel that they have equal access to fair housing, and that this is something that affects everybody. And it's not just your basic protected classes of, age, gender, race, ethnicity. There's also things like sexual orientation that you cannot be discriminated against, arbitrary characteristics. If you have purple hair and piercings everywhere, you should be, all of that goes into place. So we do, again, have a more in-depth workshop that goes into what those different protected classes are to share with the community. Next up is our domestic violence unit. I want to reiterate again that we do not typically deal with custody cases or any type of child support or anything like that. But under our domestic violence reduction project, which is the goal is to provide legal assistance to individuals to protect children from further exposure to domestic violence. Eligibility for that is case by case. So if we have an individual that is seeking our services to remove themselves from a domestic violence situation, and they do have young children, and custody might be a part of some of that legal documentation they need to file. Again, that's a case by case, but typically we don't go after just custody unless it's wrapped up with a particular case. So some of the services that we offer is representation in court, filing for restraining orders and other legal protective orders, and then providing other legal assistance and referrals to services. Then we also have a project that works directly with our immigrant victims. So we have our VAWA, which is the Violence Against Women Act, and help assisting with U visa petitions. We provide the same services to immigrant victims as we do anybody else: representation in court, filing petitions, any kind of protective orders, referring them to outside resources, but then also the advocacy aspect of that, which is helping apply for the U visa, and then helping them along the process of getting getting that approved so that they can actually stay and feel protected and safe. Then we have our health and public benefits. So on the one side, we have our Kern Health Consumer Center that deals with public health insurance. And then we have our public benefits unit that deals with other public benefits like CalFresh, CalWorks, Social Security, disability, supplemental security, income, and other types of public benefits. Now, eligibility for both of these programs is you must be low income and a Kern County resident. And so if you are low income, you automatically not automatically, depending on your low income status, depends on what public benefits you can apply for. So typically, individuals that qualify for any type of public insurance or public benefit will be ideal clients for us to help assist. Some of the services that we help assist with are applying for the actual services, appealing any kind of denials that might come through, filing complaints and grievances against organizations, challenge of a denial of services. So if an individual is not receiving the medical care from like the hospital, for example, and they do have Medi-Cal, we help with some of those challenges of denial. Billing and affordability is a big thing, especially for the low income community. When you have a public health insurance plan, you anticipate that you have that because you can't afford a regular plan. And so when you get all of a sudden a bill from a hospital that you didn't expect to pay, and you don't know how you're going to do it, we help arrange that mediation between the client and the organization seeking the billing to make sure that they can pay that in a timely manner without being penalized. And then, of course, accessing services. For our public benefits, we go even deeper. So we might help assist with appeals for denials, appeals for reductions in benefits, termination notices that might occur. And sometimes things happen. It can be as simple as forgetting to submit a particular form in during your regular review. So we do a lot of counsel and advice for individuals on what are the next steps to either apply or to maintain that particular public benefit unit. And then also we go even further with types of things like obtaining court records and court representation. So if an individual, particularly with our immigrant victims, if you're trying to apply for a public benefit, you may not have that birth certificate that is required to prove your identity. So we help obtain those records to make sure you can properly apply for those services. Then we have our homelessness unit. And under this, we have our Community Homeless Law Center project. This is a collaboration with multiple service providers in Kern County that we work with. We do not take clients directly. They must be referred to us by a case manager. And a case manager is assigned to an individual when they call that 211 number and report that they are either homeless or on the verge of being homeless. And there's an entire process that goes through that they have to go through with this. But once an individual who is homeless or on the verge of homelessness reaches it obtains a case manager, that case manager can then make a referral to us for certain services that we might provide. So one of the key things about the Community Homeless Law Center project is that we help remove legal barriers to obtaining and maintaining permanent housing. So this might be addressing public health issues, accessing public benefits, applying for public benefits like Social Security or disability, helping obtain the legal documentations for domestic violence. And then if in fact there are legal barriers that prevent an individual from employment or housing, we have what's called homeless court. Now, I must note here that the legal barriers that we discuss about removing are in relation to traffic fines and misdemeanors. So we do not help reduce felonies. We do not help with like a restitution fees and things like that. These are strictly things that like are traffic fines that have suspended your license, which could prevent you from getting a job, which prevents you from paying your rent. So those are the types of legal barriers we have. And we have actually had cases where we have had individuals that had a traffic fine that just continued to mount interest after interest after interest for many, many years. And it got to a point where this homeless individual there was no way that they could pay this fine to be able to obtain employment. And so we actually have had cases where we have went in and the judge has said, you know what? I appreciate that you're here today. I see that you're working hard. You're doing all the proper steps to help make sure that you can get yourself out of the situation you're in. And we've actually seen traffic fines reduced to a payment that is manageable for an individual that then led to employment and housing. And speaking of housing, we have our housing unit. Under this, we have our Landlord Tenant Assistance Center and our Sergeant Shriver Housing Project. Eligibility for both of these are definitely case by case basis, but there are some differences that must be noted between these. So the Landlord Tenant Assistance Center used to be located in the Kern County Superior Court, but because of the pandemic, a lot of in-person services have been moved. So our representatives that used to be in the courthouse are back in GBLA building offices. But we still get referred through the courthouse and through other community partners such as yourselves for people to get legal counsel and advice on notices. So a lot of times a tenant might be given a pre-eviction notice that might be a 3-day pay or quit, or a 5-day, or a 30-day, or a 60-day, or you must move your vehicle, or you're not supposed to have dogs. There's all kinds of notices that individuals can be for. And typically a pre-eviction notice such of these will be given to a tenant before the actual eviction process starts. So we help provide legal counsel and advice and let them know how they're supposed to respond, when they're supposed to respond, and the advice of how to move forward. If there's any kind of mediation that happens between the landlord and the tenant to resolve the issue, we do help with that. Educate the community about what these different notices are, what they mean, and what their responsibilities are in terms of that. And we do that again through a lot of community workshops, case management if necessary, and then referrals to outside services. On the other side, the Sergeant Shriver Housing Project is, again, eligibility is case by case, but this is typically what happens when you're actually served the actual eviction, and the landlord that served the eviction is represented by another attorney. So we will actually come in and help with eviction defense and then make referrals as necessary to the client, depending on what they need. So sometimes a client might be on the verge of eviction and there is nowhere else for them to go. And if they don't resolve the issue, they're going to end up homeless. So we help resolve those issues and provide an eviction defense in the hopes that they would stay in their home. We might also help with relocation services that help the individual move from one housing unit to another housing unit. And then sometimes it's just as simple as, especially with the pandemic, with everything that happened, a lot of individuals lost their jobs. So we do help provide resources to help seek new employment, further education. And then we also make referrals out for family necessities for an individual that might be struggling to support their family. Our long-term care ombudsman program, I bring this up just to make individuals aware, where we don't work with clients directly with this program. What we do is we have what's called our long-term care ombudsman volunteers, who are advocates for long-term care facilities and families. So the whole goal is to enhance their quality of life and care for residents, and to ensure that they're treated with the dignity and respect they deserve. And a lot of times we'll find that individuals in skilled nursing facilities, residential care facilities, or assisted living facilities don't have that person that can come in and speak up for them. Depending on the situation of the resident, of course, depends on what their mental capacity to speak for themselves are, and how to address concerns. So our ombudsman volunteers go in on a regular basis, and they are given a particular resident that they see regularly. Some do it weekly, some every other week. There's a certain amount of hours that we provide, but essentially their role is to go in and make sure that the resident is being properly cared for and receiving the services they need, and then relaying the information to the family. So while again, we don't actually deal with one-on-one clients with this, if you have a client that happens to have a loved one that's in one of these facilities, you can definitely reach out and say, hey, we're hoping to get an ombudsman for our loved one, and we can help with that process. Then we have our mobile home advocacy project. This is something that I promoted pretty heavily ending into 2021 because it's really important. There wasn't really a need for this project until July of 2020. And when the state of California said, hey, we're seeing a lot of landlord tenant conflict in mobile home parks. Well, the thing here is that mobile home parks and ownership and residency are very unique in terms of the laws. So while you might be a resident who's renting a mobile home unit from a mobile home park, regular landlord tenant laws would likely apply to you in situations of notices to vacate, eviction, and so forth. But if you're a mobile home owner, there are very particular, unique laws called mobile home residency laws that protect you and give a bit of an extension on some of these things. So if you own your mobile home, and you've been evicted by the park management, you can't just pick up your mobile home and move it. It's extremely expensive. It's extremely dangerous. There's a lot of damage that can occur. And so typically, people will walk away and lose what they've purchased. And so that's why the Mobile Home Advocacy Project came about, is to educate the community about these unique laws that happen within mobile home residencies, provide counsel and advice to not just park residents, but also park management on how to maintain this relationship between the two. And then we do help with pre-eviction and eviction disputes. And then our last unit is our volunteer attorney program. So if at any point we have a client that comes in and we have a case that we feel very strongly about wanting to help assist with, but they don't meet the eligibility criteria of any of our other units, this is typically when our volunteer attorney program will come in. The cool thing about this is what we have volunteer attorneys in the local community that come in and actually provide pro bono services to us. So they might accept a case referral and help an individual. They may co-counsel with our attorneys and help provide representation in court for eviction defense and so forth, or other types of cases like civil rights, immigration status, things like that. We also do take paralegal interns and volunteers that do a lot of assisting with legal research and writing, doing the investigations and preparing the court paperwork, making court appearances. So if there's a case that we have that we need to make an appearance for, but our attorneys are booked somewhere else, we do have volunteer attorneys that come in and do that. And then we also have multiples that offer community workshops throughout the year in their areas of expertise. So for 2021, for example, we don't typically deal with probate cases. And so we actually had attorneys from the outside community come in and provide a workshop, an hour-long workshop on what probate is and how it affects individuals. We've also done things on elder abuse care and others. So this is a really great opportunity for us to work with the community, but just know that we really do our best to provide as many services as possible to the community, and especially the low income and elderly. Those are our highest priority. So for any other information about any of our services, you can visit our website at gbla.org. Our main intake line that you can refer clients to is 325-5943. Now, our Fair Housing Law Project and our Kern Health Consumer Center do have other intake line numbers, but that tends to be a little bit tricky when sharing that information. So I would just recommend, if you have a client that you think could benefit from our services, have them call the main line, and then they'll be directed to the proper people that can help them with their particular situation. If your organization would like more information about any of our programs, or like a more in-depth presentation about services that we offer by a particular unit or project, please feel free to reach out to me at kmolliken@gbla.org, and I'd be happy to facilitate and coordinate that workshop with you. And my direct line's also on there. And then I also encourage you to follow us on our social media channels. So we share a lot of information about workshops that are occurring. We have what's called Tip Tuesday, where every Tuesday we provide different tips to the community about certain rights and responsibilities of individuals. So for the last several weeks, we've been doing tips on security deposits. How to dispute a security deposit claim, how to request from your landlord, what are the landlord requirements to return a security deposit, things like that. And we also provide things like notifications on when certain benefit timelines are and so forth. And then finally, we have our YouTube channel where we do record our workshops that we host throughout the year and post those to be viewed for a later time. But also we have short informational videos about multiple services. Our biggest producer is around health insurance and public benefit access. But we do go into very brief presentations about our other units too, like guardianship and domestic violence and others. So a lot of great stuff that we offer, and we look forward to working with you in the future. And again, if you have any clients that you think would benefit from our services, please feel free to have them reach out to us. And so I can go ahead and take any questions at this time.
I want to give others a chance to ask questions. I know I have a couple of questions if no one else. So one of the questions that I have, we're obviously up in the mountain communities. I know that main intake line is a good place to start, but to access, help in some of these units, would our residents have to make it down to Bakersfield, or are you guys doing Zoom consultations?
That's the greatest thing about the pandemic. I mean, if anything else, the positive is we learned that there's so much we can do remotely. You know, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, none of us would even think about taking, using DocuSign to sign official documents. None of us would think about having confidential conversations with clients via Zoom. So one of the cool things that has happened is we have adjusted and adapted to that. So we are still actually currently closed to in-person services, meaning we're not typically seeing clients in person. We are mostly doing remote. So yes, absolutely, there's the ability to use virtual platforms and phone to get the information relayed back and forth.
Great. Yeah, that's definitely a big benefit up here in our community for some of those changes that have happened with the pandemic. And then the other thing I'm curious about, you mentioned, you know, on some of those projects like low income, how are you defining that? Is that by being eligible for certain programs, or is it by the federal poverty level?
Yeah, as long as you make less than the federal poverty guidelines, you are considered low income.
And then you did touch on one that specifically related to immigrants. In terms of some of those other programs, does immigration status affect, you know, being able to be helped by any of those units?
Not at all. That is not a barrier for anything for us. Ultimately, our goal is to provide services to the underserved populations. And that isn't just our low income and elderly, that's also our immigrant communities, our rural areas. So just making sure that everybody knows that these services are available to you, and your citizenship status is not a barrier for us.
Okay. Great. Well, did anyone else have any questions for Cassie? Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. So now I wanted, before we wrap up, just time for partners to share events, things that they're working on that the collaborative can be a benefit with. Paula, you have something.
I was quick to the draw. So just two things really quickly. I'm sure I've mentioned it in other meetings, but we are hosting our first inaugural annual conference. We were actually hoping that it was going to be in person, but it is to talk about the ACEs work that we have done throughout this year through a state grant, and kind of just discuss what the next steps are as far as what that reach looks like. If anybody has any questions as far as what ACEs is or how that is applying to the community, please feel free to reach out to me. And the second piece is that even though our funding is a 5-year cycle, we do have some money set aside that is to support community events, and anything that is specifically geared towards children 0 to 5 and their families, we are more than happy to explore a possibility of funding. I've dropped the link. We don't have an application, but the information is on our website. The link will direct you and give you details. Normally, any request under $5,000 can be approved through our executive director. Anything that is above that amount in any type of project, we would have to have it go and be approved by the commissioners. So if you have any questions on what that looks like, please give me a call and I'd be more than happy to assist with that. Thank you.
Thanks. Kathleen, you wanted to jump on? And
let me jump on here. Where am I? All right. Well, you can hear me. You don't need to see me. Oh, all right. So I am also with the Kern Fire Safe Council. And as part of our education wing, we're doing programs with 3 schools in Kern County, 2 of them here in the mountain communities this spring. It's an interactive program, ready, set, go. And then we're going to have some filming of the kids. They're going to do their own webinars for us so that they can bring the information home to their parents and also share it with their friends so that the kids will be fire aware. And that's where the safety will begin. You know, up here in the mountains, we're at great risk for wildfire. And so we're going to start with the kids and have them educate the rest of us. So if you have any information about, or you need any information about that, our website is kernfiresafe.org. Everything you need to know is on kernfiresafe.org. Or you can reach us at info@kernfiresafecouncil.org. Or you can just contact me and I'll be happy to fill you in on any question and answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Kathleen. Very excited to hear how that program goes. I think that's a really interesting approach to take it through the youth. Anyone else want to jump in and share anything in our chat or verbally tell us about anything coming up? All right, well, I have a few things that I wanted to share that are going on. So one that's coming up tomorrow is that Pine Mountain Club PMCPOA is going to be hosting a mobile vaccination and testing clinic for you can get testing for COVID, you can get boosters, you can get first doses, any of those things. And so I'll share that in the chat. And then the MCFRC is going to be kind of hosting, we're helping to promote a mobile vaccine clinic in Fraser Park as well. That's going to be at our community center, and that's going to be March 5th, Saturday, March 5th. So I'll share those flyers. And then the Earth Organization, who is one of our collaborative partners, they weren't able to attend today, but they're actually doing a children's workshop on Saturday. So I'm going to share that flyer. That's for kind of the 10-year-old, that kind of age range. And they do a lot with ecology and helping kids understand cooperative ecology. And then I did share via email our full schedule for 2022 for the collaborative. So, we can't find a time that suits everyone perfectly. Wish that were possible, but I wanted to kind of get that out. Some people had asked me, what is the full schedule for the year? So I'm going to drop some of those in the chat. But I see that a couple people have added some other things, and I don't know if you want to jump on and share about that. Anyone that's added a flyer into the chat.
Sure, thank you. This is Paku with the California Telephone Access Program. I just wanted to remind everyone that we do lunch and learns every third Thursday of the month. The next one is going to be March 17th, and I chatted our flyer in there along with the login and meeting password. Thank you, Lindsay.
Thanks.
Hi, Lindsay, it's Oakley. Cassie did a great job of doing the presentation today, so I don't have much to add, but I just included the flyer for anyone that you might know that might be interested in like helping us with investigations. We do secret shop housing. So it's volunteer if anyone's interested. There's a number on the flyer just to call me. Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you. Thanks, Oakley. Great. And I saw that it looks like these are calendars related to the mobile immunization clinic as well for children. So, well, thank you so much for joining us. I don't know if anyone else has any last thing that they wanted to share or let us know about that's coming up. But if not, we can definitely wrap up for today. And thank you again for these great presentations. I think they had to jump out, our presenters, but it's definitely helpful for my staff for sure to understand better how to refer people to some of these programs. Oh, Cassie, you're still here. You were in the same spot, so I missed you. So thank you again, Cassie. I appreciate it.
Thank you. We appreciate the opportunity to share just what we're doing and get more involved in the community for sure.
Great. Thank you, Betty, for coming. And Jake, I appreciate it.